Hello and welcome to Videodrone, a podcast about movies, TV shows, stuff happening in the world of entertainment, and occasionally a little game related to that industry. My name's Ben Vanel, joined as always by my wonderful co-host, fresh back from the fine shores of Western Australia. It's Tommy Dassolo.
I really, when you said my work, I really thought you were going to call me your wife. It really felt like you were running up to call me your wife. Did you catch that, Jen?
Yeah. Or work wife? My work wifey.
Yeah.
Please start calling Tommy your work wifey.
Yeah. Please call me your girl boss. Thank you very much.
Oh boy.
Your baby girl.
Oh boy. Thank you to everyone who came out in Perth, by the way, to the shows. Lovely to meet a bunch of people over there. And at one point I met someone and I was talking to him. I was telling a story about Ben, our mutual friend Gibby, who comes up on the show for some reason every 2 weeks. And this person looked at me and said, "You mean the admin of Gibflix?"
I do love spreading the fame of
Yeah.
people who are just, he
Friends
just
of
has
ours.
a day job. He's just a friend. But he's getting notoriety. And someone who has been notorious for loving films and television shows and being our friend for nigh on a decade. It's Jen Fricker. Jen,
Hey.
welcome back.
It has been a decade at least.
Yeah.
Yuck,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
How are we? We're all 17. What do you mean?
I know.
This is fucked.
I know.
I messaged you guys a couple days ago. So I didn't watch any new movies this week because I was taken by a game called CineNerdle2.app. Have either of you played the battle mode on this?
Not the
No.
battle mode.
Oh
no, I
my
just kind
God.
of had to click around, but I'm going to open it now so I can...
Okay. It's like you go up against extreme film freaks on the internet, and basically you get like a starter film, and you have to go one for one linking the film by actor or crew member or whatever, right? And at first I was like, oh, this is kind of fun, like a bit of movie. You can block people on certain genres. If you hit certain targets, you can like specify you got a battle kit and stuff. I was like, oh, it's a bit fun. 8 hours later,
Yes. Yes.
my boyfriend, who was visiting from a different state, was like, yeah, we need to go outside, dude. I'm in the fucking Reddit. Like, I'm like, okay, how do I, like...
Oh, wow.
There's certain timings on when you can get certain parts of your battle kit, like, re-upped. There's also,
brother.
like, people learn certain patterns of, like, disparate connected movies. For example, right, you can only use the same connection 3 times. So people are using, like, Wes Anderson films. They'll try and fuck you on an obscure Wes Anderson. Then you just, like, Rugrats in Paris movie, because the same person who did the soundtrack on one of the
Mother's
Wes...
Ball.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did the
yeah,
Rugrats in
yeah.
Paris.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so you're just like learning all these like interconnected things. Or you're trying to fuck people. Like
Right.
It
Like,
sounds
if
like it's
you-
like finally you have an application for all the useless trivia you've accrued over the
Exactly,
years that is like, people aren't
exactly.
really interested. Oh, you know the guy from Devo did all the Rugrats music?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't, and I don't care. Like,
Did
why?
you know Whoopi Goldberg was in Rugrats,
Yeah.
the movie?
Oh.
Yeah.
People
Yeah,
trying
this
to...
is sick because, like, I mentioned off air, Jen, like, I love frames and I was a big Wordle fan. Like, I tend to like these kind of little short puzzles. Doesn't have to take 8 hours of your day unless you're psycho.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, this one that's, like, slightly more involved and, yeah, draws on all of my special interest knowledge that I have accrued over the years. Yeah, this is sick. I'm worried. If they introduce microtransactions, I might go broke.
That's exactly it. Yeah, if
Yeah.
they monetize this in any way, then it's over.
Game over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna give it a go. This
And
sounds
you'll
like
never
fun.
see. This podcast will end.
Yeah.
As soon as the 3 of us are playing on it at the same time, it's like we won't have time to make content anymore.
Well, I just I just had the week in Perth, came back yesterday, and then just before you got on the call, Ben, I was saying to Jen, yeah, I'm pretty wide from the time difference and everything. Probably do this and then have a bit of a chill day. And Jen was like, "What are you going to do?" And I didn't really have a good answer for that, but now I do. I'm going to log 9 consecutive hours of sin and nerd doodle.
And the other thing is like you can't chat in game, but
Right.
you can enter you can see what your opponent, what titles they're entering into the search bar, and if they're not correct, you can see what they. So it's also a way to like tell people to go fuck themselves, because if they fucked you on something, like I had one person be like, "WTF?" Enter. "What is wrong with you?" Question mark.
Yeah.
Get a job! Exclamation mark.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay. I like this. You can get
It's
a bit
really
aggro with
fun.
it.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you were also going to tell us about something that you saw. I mean, as much as you said you haven't seen any films this week, but I mean, you've sort of outed yourself there when you didn't even need to, because you saw something last week that you didn't talk about that wasn't out yet, and now it's
Yeah.
out.
Saving some gold.
Yes.
Yes, I saw Companion. Have either of you seen Companion?
Not yet. This is
No.
only. It's in theaters now, right? It's not.
Yeah, I think it only
it's-
came out last week.
Yeah. All I know is that Sophie Thatcher from Heretic is in it. Jack Quaid from The Boys, and Lucas Gage from Thingo.
Being hot.
Euphoria.
Yeah, from
Yes.
getting his ass ate. No, wait.
Yes.
From eating the ass.
From eating
in,
the ass.
What?
In The White Lotus.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's like the only thing I know him from.
It's very funny. He plays like a kind of masked straight dude in How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Oh
okay.
yeah. Yes.
And it's like, okay, sure. I just, anytime he shows up in anything, I'm like, I'm happy you're here. This is good.
Yeah, that is a great movie as well. I think I talked about that a couple of years ago, whenever that came out. How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Yeah, very good. But
Yeah.
tell us about Companion, Jen.
Companion is a film about, and this is not a spoiler, I think it's like very well advertised, about a sex robot that only realizes she's a sex robot like after a few years of being in a relationship with a guy.
And is this the people that made Barbarian? Is that right?
The producers, I believe.
Okay.
The director, I like looked up some of his other stuff on Letterboxd. It's like very weird, obscure kind of like school camp movies that don't have very good ratings.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fred 3, Camp Fred,
Yes.
Camp Fred.
starring Lucas Crookshank. Any relation? I don't know.
That would be incredible. The Crookshanks are running the entertainment industry.
John Crookshank's a Nepo baby. Imagine if we found that out.
Redfern Electrical, Hollywood machine. But yeah, it's interesting. I was really hyped for this one. I love Jack Quaid. I'll watch him in anything. And it's got like a good crew as well. It's got Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, as well, playing a kind of like fun, like character. But yeah, it just I don't know. It's interesting, the commentary I've seen around it since it came out, like wider release, and people are like, men are gonna hate this film, and it's like very like gender warsy stuff, and I'm kind of like, but like men made this film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
men wrote and directed.
directed, the film. It kind of seems to be like a take on like men just want women to be robots, and they don't but I don't know. It felt like an extended episode of Black Mirror with the kind of level of politics of that. It was fun to see it in the cinema, but it feels like a streaming movie in that there's literally a scene where they explain the entire thesis of the film. Like one character sits there and just monologues like, this is what like people are like this, and this person is like this, and da-da-da. But like it's I think in like the last 20 minutes of the film, so you're like, yeah, I know, I've watched the film, like I've been watching the film, I understand. And I don't know, like, do you guys remember when there was like an article that came out a few months ago, and it was kind of about how Netflix are trying to get people to script films for Netflix where people are describing what they're doing while they're doing it, because the way people watch Netflix is usually in the background.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
have
like,
their own like internal category that they think of as like background shows or whatever.
Yeah, second screen shows.
So like most films are like, it's like show don't tell, but like this new approach is like show and tell.
I was watched the first 2 episodes of No Good Deed last night on Netflix with Ray Romano and Lisa Kudrow, and it's like it's a decent premise, but it's not quite that. But it is like everything everyone says is just pure exposition. You know, just like. Remember my brother? He was in jail, and that thing that it's like just constantly people talking about who they are and what is happening
and what
in
their relationship
the
to
most
each other.
explicit ways. There's no flourish to it. I was like, this is like probably the most egregious like example of this I've ever seen. This is like hard to watch. Like,
I love it when like in movies you can always tell where someone picks up the phone and they'll be like, "Hey sis, how's the new job at the bakery going?"
You always know you're off to a fucking great time when that happens.
Yeah.
it's hard, isn't it? Because even in like the best stuff, there'll be at least one or two things, small things where you're like, I mean, people don't really talk like that, but whatever. It's a movie, and they've got to tell us who this person is. But it's like, it's so interesting just what that mental line is between being able to lose yourself in all the rest of it and like go. Why would you just bring up the fact that, you know, your parents disappeared 8 years ago? Like, why would that just be wedged into conversation here for no reason? Yeah.
That's just normal convo. Yeah. So Companion kind of feels like that. Stylistically very beautiful. Everyone's like a great and funny. It's like a nice tone to it all. But it's just like, I don't know. I think I was talking to my friend about it the other day. I think because there have been a lot of great movies out very recently. Yeah. Like seeing Nosferatu or, you know, Amelia Perez. Just kidding. Just a silly joke.
That's a great new personality type, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amelia Perez is actually my favourite movie.
I just love the tweets. Anyway. But I think because we've kind of been spoiled so early in the year.
Yeah.
Like when you kind of just watch like a kind of a regular, like, because the 4.5 to 5 category is so strong.
Yeah.
The difference between a 4.5 and a 3.5 feels like the gaping valley between the two.
Yeah.
Whereas
how dare you fucking waste my time with a 3.5 star movie?
This is a fine movie. Like, how dare you?
Yeah. That's real winter time. You can get away with that a bit more. It's like at the moment you're like, I mean, I could have been at the beach instead of watching this.
Exactly. Exactly.
I could have been playing Cinernerdle too.
You know, I should have been playing Cinernerdle through this.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. I don't know, there's some really fun kills in it too. Like, I do love a good, like, goopy, yucky kill. But I feel like it just could have been a bit scarier. It could have been a bit yuckier or something, a bit meaner. Right. It's a bit too nice to all of the characters, I think.
And the sort of, like, this genre was one of my favorites back in the day. The sort of, like, what is it to be human? What is it, like, how do you... if you are, you know, quote unquote, not human, do you deserve to be controlled? How do you break? Like, Blade Runner is obviously like the epitome of it. But there's been a bunch of good shit since then. Like, I love Ghost in the Shell. I like cyberpunk generally, which often touches on this theme. But like, what is it to be human? And like, are the humans the real monsters? Is just like, it's kind of been done to death by this point.
Yeah.
I'm always open for a fresh take on it. But yeah, when it's like not super groundbreaking, it kind of does feel like, okay, I guess this is your first script.
This seems like a bit more of a clumsy version of Ex Machina, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Where it's like not explicitly a but there's like the kind of at a certain point in that you're like, oh, he'd be fucking her.
Yes.
Yeah, he do be fucking her.
He do be fucking her.
And it's also just like, it's kind of, there's a lot made of like, he's got a self-driving car and he uses like his smartphone and da-da-da-da-da, but then like,
his
I don't
name's
know.
Belon.
Yeah, totally. Schmark.
That actually would be awesome. A film where every character in it, their name is some version of that. Schmuck, Schmuckerberg, Schmuck,
Schmuckerberg.
Meve mobs.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know. The thesis is really like, what if you could fuck Siri?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's like a fine movie, but I wouldn't necessarily go out of your way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then also, I'll watch Jack Quaid in anything, dude.
I know, and I'm curious. I've only seen Sophie Thatcher in Heretic, and I thought she was like great in that. and like obviously she's like the lead of this. So I'm keen to see more of her work, and I do like Jack Quaid as well, like you said. And
it's definitely not a bad movie.
Right.
It's not a bad movie. It's just like, it's a fine movie. And like, it's like, I've watched Anora this year. I've watched, all these. And so it's like, has this profoundly moved me? Has this connected with me? Has this like super entertained me? Have I transcended genre with this? Like, no, it's just a good movie.
This is a good new rating system. Wait till winter.
Yes.
It's good. It's good, but it's not worth
Wait till winter.
Yeah, it's not worth giving up a good beach evening for.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Ben and I have seen something recently. A young man who you might know by the name of Benoit Blanc, or perhaps you know him as James Bond. That's right. Daniel Craig taking on his greatest assignment yet in a new film called Queer.
Yes, from Luca Guadagnino, who I'm a big fan of. I've liked a lot of his stuff that I've seen. Call Me by Your Name was the first one, but like Bones and All was fantastic as well. He's got me around the Chalamet. Which that's a feat. But and he's done a bunch of stuff back in Italy as well, some Italian language stuff. And he's really an interesting director. I'm generally curious to check his stuff out. And yeah, this is an adaptation of a William S. Burroughs novel, unfinished. I think, he died before it was finished.
Yeah, right.
It's very autobiographical, by all reports. This is Daniel Craig as William Lee in the film. He's a writer. He mentions at one point he's independently wealthy, or he's living by independent means. He's in Mexico City. He's a drunk. He is a gay man who is very horny, and we see him on the prowl and eventually meet up with Eugene, played by, what's his name? Drew something?
Starkey.
Drew Starkey, who is great in this film. Yeah. And they have basically a very tense and a very unclear relationship that sort of goes up and down throughout the film.
When he sees him at first, he's like, he's sitting with a woman and he's getting a bit of a vibe, and they're just kind of like hanging out as friends. And then it's pretty funny, like the way they set up, talking about the like elegant ways of, showing and not telling, essentially. Early scene, Lee's had a meeting with some people and he gets up to leave, and then as he's walking off, one of the guys is like, that guy's always trying to fuck me. It's like, all right, we got a real horn dog on our hands.
Yes. It is like a very subtle film in some ways, but very, very explicit in others, which I like. I like that.
Wait, how explicit are we talking?
I mean, you don't see penetration.
Yeah, you don't see it go in, but you see kind of everything around it going in.
Yeah. Similar to Call Me by Your Name, there's cum in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weirdly
honestly, good.
I know.
That was the thing that was missing from Baby Girl, honestly. Not enough fluids.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry for spoilers.
If you're going to market the film as being like a horny romp, you got to show some fluid at some stage.
At least. I don't need to see penetration, but show me wetness.
Yeah, show me some gunk. Yeah. Show me some muck.
Give me the grub,
Yes.
But yeah, it's got like a weird it's definitely got like a weird kind of vibe to it in the first like 10 minutes. It feels a little bit all over the place. I was kind of a bit struggling to get on board, even though there's like a lot of like weird stylistic stuff, like
because it kind of visually, it's very stylistic. It is very much what's that guy, the Spanish painter, starts with a G. It's very like everything's very clean and blank, and a lot of like a lot of red dust streets and like adobo houses and like white brick rendered houses. And
I loved how it looked, like that bar that they're always in, and the outfits, like Jason Schwartzman is in this.
That is part of, I think, why it's It is tonally all over the place, James,
Yeah.
because Jason Schwartzman is wearing literally a fat suit, but he is very much in like fat makeup. He's got a big round face. He's got he's wearing massive baggy clothes. Like
He's unrecognizable. Like I saw, because it has this like long credit sequence where it brings up the name of like literally every person who is in the film at some point.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I love Jason Schwartzman. I'm pumped for this. And then
Yeah.
it's like halfway through the film, like when the hell is Schwartzman showing up? And then I realized like,
man, he comes
like, oh fuck, that's him. Like,
I mean,
he's kind of unrecognizable.
I
Is it like
him.
a role that you think Philip Seymour Hoffman would have played if he was still alive?
I literally messaged that to Tommy after I
Really?
saw it. Yes, literally
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
I think he would have been perfect for it. Even when Jack Black was being more serious, when he was doing like Bernie and sort of like that borderline, because it is a very charming, it's meant to be a very charming character that he's playing. It's like, he's basically the third lead of the film. He's Daniel Craig's character's best friend, and he's sort of like this weird funhouse mirror version of him.
Yeah. And they're like sort of their gossip about like the gay scene
Yes.
in town, and like there's like a running thing of Schwartzman's character like keeps bringing boys back to his house who like rob him.
Yeah.
Well,
Running off with his shoes and his
Yeah.
That's so good.
they're like, everyone's like always saying to him, man, you get a hotel. Obviously you get a hotel. You'll never take them back to your house.
But I recognized him straight away, and I thought he looked ridiculous. Like, that is, I think. So yeah, Tommy, we sort of messaged back and forth a bit about this. You much preferred the first half of the film. I much prefer the second half. And the first half is very much like, okay, we're setting the scene. We're hanging out in this city. It's a bunch of Americans with more money than they know what to do with.
Yep.
They're picking up young Mexican dudes. And yeah, we weave in the Drew Starkey character, Eugene, who's like this, Texas, like college kid. He's like just come out of the army. And yeah, we're not really sure where he stands with regards to his sexuality and Daniel Craig more specifically. And yeah, we also get to know the lead character, who is just a desperate drunk. Like, we see his typewriter, in the corner of his room with unfinished manuscripts in it. But he is just a complete drunk. And yeah, the entire first half is the tentative steps that him and Eugene take towards each other. And I just really struggled with it because part of it was so heightened and surreal, and kind of unbelievable. And then part of it was clearly meant to be so emotionally true. And my hot take on Daniel Craig is I did not like him in this film. I don't know that he has the serious chops to really convey the depth of this guy.
I liked that I kind of, when it settles into a bit of that, like, it is sort of like a call me by your name sort of mode.
Very similar, yeah.
When it gets into that and it's doing that, I really liked. But then there's, like, a lot of weird stylistic stuff where the soundtrack is, like, 1/3 Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score, 1/3 Nirvana songs and 1/3 Prince songs.
Yeah.
Which is like...
Like, as in actual...
Literally, yeah.
Which...
covers.
but it's set in, like, the 30s or something, right?
50s, I think. 50s,
yeah. Which, weirdly, I generally don't really like that incongruous modern music. It always just strikes me as trying to be a little bit like, look how clever we are. But I kind of liked it in this. Like, when he's walking through the streets and he's, like, watching a cockfight and just a Nirvana song starts blasting, it's like, yeah, this rocks. This is actually pretty awesome.
I think it was one of my favorite things about the movie. I think it's, that's Come As You Are starts playing as he's sort of like, prowling through the streets of Mexico City, and it just really works.
Which on paper it sounds kind of like a lame idea, but but then it's like... You're right, because it's doing that, and that sort of takes you out of it so much. Like, you're aware that you are watching something, like, heightened and stylized and, meant to be a bit surreal, rather than you be, like, completely given over to the time frame that you're in. But then when they really settle into just the relationship of these two guys, and he can't, like, something happens and then he pulls away for a bit, and Craig kind of, you know, gets really rattled by that. Then that's like really human and really interesting. And then I probably liked maybe like the middle third of it the most, because then they go on a little trip together. And then by the end it is like full David Lynch, like, very abstract, super abstract.
Do you think that's like kind of because like William S. Burroughs was part of like that beat poet generation? It's like quite abstract, like informal, like. Do you think he's trying to reflect that stylistically? Like, it's just kind of a bit like genre fluid, like...
I definitely think that's the case, yeah. And I've not read the book because I think the book was, like, finished by maybe people close to him or...
Right.
But, like, I've read Junkie, and Naked Lunch, obviously, is, like, super surreal. Like, that is filled with these hallucinations, and... There's very similar stuff in Queer as well. The sort of the centipede being like a recurring motif, the snake, all of that sort of stuff. I definitely think that's the reasoning behind it. And I think, again, like the anachronistic music and the surreal stuff was my favorite stuff in the film, probably because I didn't quite buy into the real human drama as much.
Interesting.
Because like he really does go for it, and there's some wild stuff, especially... The last third, it's like balls to the wall, literally in some cases.
It's definitely, I kind of like that it shifts so much. Like the last, like, it kind of a thing happens, and then there's like a, you know, sort of a postscript, and the postscript gives you like nothing tangible to hang on to in terms of like, this is what actually happened to these guys. And so... I had to, I'm not ashamed to say it, it was an immediate get onto Google and put in queer ending explained, which after I sifted through 7 pages of unrelated results. It really is. But, you know, so I watched it last week, the night before we did this, and you said you were going to watch it, so I kind of held off talking about it. And I was really glad because I was like, I think I do need another week to really just kind of let this sort of sit and linger, and like, there's like bits of it that any side of it that you really connect with, there's also a whole bunch of stuff in there that is on the complete other side of that.
Right.
That's so interesting. Because I would say that like Luca Guadagnino's stuff generally pretty like great on the intimacy human side of it, like romance or whatever. Like the I feel like most of the films that I've seen of his are really about like the nitty gritty of like how we all relate to each other, especially in relationships or like sexual relationships or whatever. So like hearing that this kind of just goes in and out of like surrealism and stuff, I'm like, I do want to see it, but
I think that's why I liked it too, especially like having liked all of his other films. And it, you know, it's cool when you get to a point with someone, a director that you like, where one comes along where you're like, oh, you cannot pin this guy down. Like even though he's like there are so many elements. Obviously, like significantly older guy that really taps, and like, you know, it's set in this like, you know, people living abroad kind of thing. Like it taps into a lot of the same kind of areas as Call Me by Your Name, and it would have been. You know, fairly easy to make this just a new kind of version of that, but that he's decided to put in all this like, odd stylistic stuff. It's like, okay, you never know what you're going to get from this guy. I quite like it.
Yeah, and I guess like I do like Bones and All it is a great human drama, but it is also like set against the backdrop of like a fantastical cannibalism curse sort of thing. And then Suspiria, you know, I think that was the first thing I'd seen of his probably. And it's like, it's not so much about, you know, romance, or it is very much about like real human emotions, like paranoia and fear and sort of oppression and stuff like that. Again, set against a very fantastical backdrop. And so, he's proven, like, at least to my taste, that he can do it in a way that I really enjoy. And maybe this one it'll take a couple of watches. Like and I do recommend it, like, very much so. I feel like 10 different people could have 10 different interpretations. And like, watching it with my girlfriend at the end, we were like, so what do you think that meant? And we both had completely different understandings.
Interesting.
I love how it looks. I love the kind of like the vibe of it, of just like, these guys in Mexico, and they're like little covert community. Like I loved all of the like overall feel of it, that I was like happy to forgive some of the things where I was a bit like, no, I don't know about this one. And I don't really know in terms of Craig's performance. Like, there were points where I was like, is this good? But again, like when a lot of it is like, it's that heightened surreal kind of stuff.
Sure.
It is a bit like, well, is that just playing into that? Is that him? Is that his performance, or is that like he's been directed that way? Because it does, there is something kind of weird about the way he plays it that does kind of really fit into the vibe that it's doing at certain points, which, it kind of did work for me, even though I agree that like if this was meant to be a bit more naturalistic, it might have felt like, this is not so good. But I kind of couldn't really figure out how strongly he'd been directed to kind of do it that way.
That's the thing. I do imagine it was directed that way. I feel like this film has come out and Guadagnino is like, yep, that's exactly how I wanted all of this to happen, to play out and to feel.
Yeah.
And it's just not to my taste, like that aspect. Like I could see you watching this, Jen, and being like, I hated this film. It was like, it felt like film school 101 version of all of these things, and it was also like theatrical and didn't like. Or I could see you being like, this was awesome. I loved it. It was
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I really love, I think my favorite, like, obviously I love Call You By My Name, but I have you ever seen A Bigger Splash? It's Tilda Swinton, Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, I watched it last year and I couldn't really get on board with it.
Yeah, so I love that film.
Right.
And I think it's a remake of a French film, which I also think is like so interesting too, is that he, like, a lot of his work is existing IP that he's either reinterpreted or like, like brought to screen from being a book or whatever.
Yeah, like the game of tennis he didn't come up with.
Yeah, he invented being bi, actually. That was an addition that he made.
I would believe that. But
yeah. Again, not enough cum in that movie either. Anyway, whatever. That's a different review. But I think about like Tilda Swinton's character in that, because it's both like the most intimate, like, again, like kind of cloister of rich people, expats in some European country. It's about intrigue and relationships and sexualities and whatever. But also, like, Tilda Swinton's character is like a rock star that's lost her voice.
Yeah.
Which is like so camp, like it's so silly. But the tension in that film is insane. Like, I remember my housemate walking in on me watching it, and I turned to her and I was like, like she walked in, like I gasped because I was so like tense the entire time.
Maybe I need to watch it again, because I kind of felt like the thing that happens near the end is just like so dramatic and then so rushed through. I was like, isn't this kind of the film? Like, what have you been watching? Why didn't this come up like half an hour earlier?
But there's like a kind of like slowness to everything that he does. Like it's like kind of watching like treacle drip out of a can, it's like very meditative, but there's like a tension to it. I don't know, there's something about his stuff that's really sensual that I really love. But
I think now that I'm remembering it too, A Bigger Splash, I'm pretty sure I watched it on SBS On Demand, which they pipe ads into, and also like the picture quality on there is always kind of dog shit. Everything's like kind of washed out, so it, like, any film that's got any sort of like beautiful scenery to it just gets completely compressed down by that service.
I think I started trying to watch another Guadagnino film on there, I Am Love, which also has Tilda Swinton, and had the exact same thing. I was like, I got to get a 4K copy of this. I'm not getting the most out of this.
Yeah. I think it's on Mubi.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can get back on board.
Another fucking streaming service to add, but
I think currently they have a $3 for 3 months or so, or maybe a 3-month free trial at the moment. If I might have to jump back on.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Anyway,
Anyway,
paid sponsorship for movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we should reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recommend it. Recommend
Yes, it's
going
definitely
in.
worth watching.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Something else that is interesting.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into Severance?
Yes, let's do.
Yeah, let's
It's
do it.
Severance time.
Episode 3, Season 2 of Severance, called Who is Alive?
Yes. Well, we know who is alive. It's bloody Miss Casey / Gemma.
Yeah.
All
right.
End of recap.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
But yes, this is a kind of mixed episode. We got innies and outies. We got a bunch of shit going on. We kick off with Ms. Cobell, who I don't know about you guys. I wasn't sure was gonna return this quickly to the show, I guess. But she's on the outer limits of the city, and she's like, fuck it, I'm going back in.
She's asleep in her car, and she gets woken up by a truck blaring its horn as it goes past, which I have to tell you, watching this on the plane with headphones on, that horn got the exact same response out of me. I fucking leapt out of my seat. It scared the shit out of me.
Okay, so Tommy's a little baby. That's good to know. But yeah, so she heads back into town. And then I think, maybe we should probably step through this character by character because it's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
But she heads back, and maybe we can deal with what happens to her at the end. Because Mark he's in there. He's printed up these Miss Casey missing posters, and he's getting the team together to be like, hey, let's all head out to the various different departments that we've visited before. Don't give the posters over because they'll find out what we're doing, but just ask around, see if anyone knows anything about her whereabouts.
Which does seem crazy to think that you could do this and not be... Like, obviously they're watching you at all times. To be, like, even just talking about it, like, they're going to be... That was my first thought of, like, well, they're going to get in trouble for this almost straight away.
They're printing it out on the office station.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. But Dylan, our good mate Dylan, who we saw last week fail at his door interview, he's been tempted with the promise of a family visitation.
Yeah, I think we forgot to bring that up in the last episode, that's part of, like,
Right.
it must have been the episode before, right? The Innie episode? Yeah, so Ep 1, Milchek comes to him and is like, hey, don't show anyone. And rather than just tell him that this is the thing, shows him the full plans, shows him the full, like, architectural design for how the visitation room for his Audi family is going to be laid out. And he's like, don't tell the others because, it might breed some jealousy. So, yeah, he's clearly into the idea of that. He's pretty pumped.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to get involved with this harebrained scheme.
Yep.
I like that, like, we're episode 3, it's really clear why all of them are back, and it's almost a complete flip on... Well, not a complete flip. I like that because we've gotten that awesome, like, Audi episode, it's just reframed how you watch the season. You just understand so much more now about, like, the Audis and how the Audis, even though they're separate kind of identities, do interplay with each other. Like, I think that's so, like... I don't know, I always love... Like that, the scene with the visitation with the wife of Dylan's Audi visiting Dylan as an innie, and Dylan's insistence. Oh, he must be a fuck up. Right?
Yeah. It's in season 1. It's apart from Mark. It's the big thing of, well, what are all these people's stories? What do they do on the outside? And they sort of did that so well, how they kind of like the reveal of like, oh, Dylan's got a family.
Yeah.
And so you don't have that now as the surprise. But yeah, I'm loving seeing just like more of what his life is on the outside. Like,
and the innie being disappointed too.
Like
innie having this idea that his Audi is like a cool guy. He like gets bulk chicks and like rocks. And it's like, no, like, he's doing this job, like, you exist because he's a fucking loser.
Yeah.
When
Not
she's
a loser,
like,
but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. When she's like, oh, he's never really found his thing, and he goes, he dumb? And she goes, no, he's not dumb. He a dick?
Yeah, I'm loving. That's Zach Cherry.
Zach Cherry,
yeah. so funny, and also is like so empathetic, and yeah, I love his character. So yeah, that's all his character like does this episode. He has his wife visits him. And he's not taking part in the all the other shenanigans.
And I loved the tone of that visitation scene.
Yes.
I loved that it's like got this weird soundscape of the beach for some reason.
Yeah,
it's got just like a static picture on a screen of a bird, of a seagull just kind of hanging there in midair.
And the picture of them as a couple on all the screens
Yeah.
behind him, like just to make sure you really know, like.
And I did wonder for a bit. I was like, I wonder if this is really his wife or if this is like something they've set up. But then I loved that bit of like cutting to them at home. She's a cop and she's heading out to do night shift and he's there with the kids. He's reading a magazine. They're just in front of the TV. He's just basically switched off. And and then that weird other side of it of him being like, oh, how was the thing today? And her being like, and she just seems like a completely different person. Him being like, how was the thing? And she's like, oh, yeah, it was fine. Just like no details to report whatsoever.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah, I've not read much about, like, I don't tend to look into, like, any sort of extra content around these episodes, but, like, the sort of, the element to her character where she's sort of in her mind maybe hearkening back to when they first met, like he is this fresh new version of what he used to be when she visits him on the inside. She's much more tender, and she's like, it seems like she's maybe trying to draw that sort of something out of him. Whereas
that's really interesting. And seeing someone and like the way they look at you when they'd first met you and was fresh, and it without the baggage of they've been together, what, like you'd assume 20 years, maybe 15 years? Yeah, that's interesting. I was just, as I was describing the scene before, I was thinking, is it something where it's, because she does seem so different when we see her on the outside. I was wondering if maybe there's an innie version of her as well, and that's been set up and orchestrated in some way. But yeah.
I just love that interaction when she's about to leave to go on her night shift, and she says like, "Oh, did you do the cookies?" And he's like, sorry, no." And it's like, and it just frames it personally so perfectly. And I think what you're saying, Ben, kind of rings true in that of like, she feels there's like a certain level of disappointment maybe with both of their lives on the outside world. Yeah,
and even like when she's
there's like the possibility.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it's like cute and awkward in that way where she like, as she's leaving, she says, "I love you," and he's sort of holds back because he has literally just met her, and you see her have that thing of like, oh, this is a bit weird, but also like it's kind of exciting in that way of like, you know, when you are seeing someone new and you roll the dice on saying that and you maybe don't get it back. Yeah, like...
Yeah.
I still love all the questions about why Miss Huang is a kid as well.
Her chiming in over the intercom was amazing. No details about the outside.
Is it still rude of me to ask why you're a kid?
Yeah. Are you like, okay? Are they like...
Have they forced you in here?
Yeah.
No, and no response. Fuck, she's good, this actress. So deadpan. So yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of Dylan's arc in that episode. Oh,
and just quickly, she shows him a photo of them all at like basically Sovereign Hill, all dressed up, and he's like, "Oh, cool, we live on a ranch."
We're cowboys.
I used to be like a person that would take photos at the entrance of the aquarium.
Yeah,
and so you'd stand in front of the green screen, and then at the end of your trip, we'd like superimpose your photo onto like a giant like tidal wave, and you're like surfing or whatever. And I just imagine like I love the idea that like she could bring in like a giant shark eating them, and he could be like, oh, what are we like marine biologists, like what are we?
This is the only photo they have of them as a whole family. It was taken at one of those like fake
that's actually so grim in a way.
So we got Irving as well. So Irving, he's sent off to O&D, which he's obviously a little bit hesitant about. That's where Bert worked. It's going to bring up some memories, but he agrees to do it. He heads off, and he ends up having kind of a very nice cathartic time, it feels like. He bonds with Felicia, who worked with Bert there for years and years. lot of reminiscing going on. But it ends up in this great little cliffhanger, little tease moment as well.
Yeah, yeah. You see him, he's got all his drawings he's been doing of Bert that are great. He says he's been doing one like every day, and then the little corridor that he has the memory of seeing his Audi painting. And she's like, "How do you know about that?
Yeah.
Tell me more."
I love the way there's no relative space to anything that we see on the 7th floor. Like when you think about the Simpsons house, you're pretty sure you know the layout of it, and like where the bedrooms are on the 2nd floor, and the backyard and stuff. I couldn't tell you where anything is relative to any, and I love that they just kind of keep plonking down these giant new spaces or whatever, and the promise of whatever hallway Irv is drawing being like bad,
and it having
bad news.
And there being like one little signifier to it that makes it immediately recognizable to people who know what it is.
Yeah, I think what did he say about his drawings of Bert? He drew one. He was drawing one every day. He didn't get to see him, and then he was drawing them less and less, but he didn't mind, which was like, the writing. Maroon. But then, so Felicia identifies the hallway as the exports hall, which sounds like, it is some connection to the outside, that it could be a way for maybe the innies to get around getting switched back off as they leave. Obviously very intriguing. Just a little tease there. So obviously a nice little breadcrumb for us to follow for the rest of the season. But not too much else going on with Irv, which, that was funny.
It's just basically that one scene, right? Like,
pretty much.
We just sort of see that interaction, and then,
so we got most of the rest of the episode. Mark and Helly fucking really going down the rabbit hole.
So I think at this point we're fairly certain Helly is Helena from the outside playing along. Like
I'd put money on it.
Yeah, it definitely
just
seems
the
that way.
mannerisms, the voice seem kind of different. I don't know the way.
They're weird, like interaction in that corner when they're walking before they get to the goat room. And in the last episode, we saw her watching the surveillance footage of them having kissed. And there's that moment where it kind of looks like, will this happen again? And you see her have that, like, that sort of, I really read it as her thinking, I guess this would be something that would be, but like she doesn't have that attachment of having been the person who kissed him in the first place. She's like, oh, that's right. Well, I know from watching the tapes that there's a bit of a thing going on here. I loved that weird sort of like almost standoff between the two of them. I thought that was so well played.
Can I tell you something funny that my boyfriend said about that scene? He was like, "Oh, Adam Scott's a really good actor," and I'm like, "Yeah,
he's in Severance."
And he was like, "No, but that's like a different Adam Scott smile." He's like, usually he does like a kind of like smug smile or like a bit of a like, but that one was like a real strained, like, I'm confused by this. What's going on? I don't know. I think also, Tommy, you're giving such a generous read to Helena's character, because in my mind, I'm like, this woman studied the tapes and she knows that she can pull that string at any point.
Oh, sure. I mean, more just like, but even seeing that realization is just like, that's the person who's watched the tape, who remembers seeing about this interaction from a tape and not from having actually lived it. Because then, it's so interesting again, like the thing of, and I guess we'll maybe start to see this a bit more with Dylan's character, the idea of having like a romantic attraction to someone as an innie, but you have no life experience to sort of bring up and draw from of like, when I've like met people romantically in the past, like this is how it's gone and this is what to expect and this is how to behave. It's like they have this impulse and this desire, but there's no life experience to draw back from. It's just pure instinct. Is so interesting.
Irv this season, like we're watching someone go through their first heartbreak, and almost like witnessing someone grieve like almost a death, like the way that he and Felicia reminisce, it just sounds like two people kind of like reminiscing about like a family member or something who's passed
Well,
away.
Right.
yeah, that was such a big like click in moment for me in season 1 of like, oh, this show is fucking awesome, where they have the like going away party for him, and it's like this guy basically will be dead to all of them. They don't get to
Right.
catch up with him. They
Yeah.
don't, retirement or someone leaving a job in the real world is just like, yeah, man, we'll keep in touch. But this is just
Right.
purely, he is just not going to exist for them at all.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. Like Irving, because it is odd how, like we've talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, like they have enough knowledge about how things work where it's like, well, I know what a chair is. I know what a computer is. I know how to type. I know how to read. I know that water makes me feel good when I drink it. Like they have all of these basic sort of slightly higher level than instinctive sort of, knowledge
Yeah,
bases.
they know English. They know how to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. And like, Irving's like, a 50, 60-year-old man. But yes, we're seeing this guy experience like the emotional process in a way without any context, any other previous sort of stimuli, even if not just personally, like watching a movie where you're like, I'm seeing someone else go through, like he just has nothing. And so it's this purely like instinctive response to it that is like, yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's very, very interesting. And yeah, I do think similarly with the Adam Scott, Britt Law, like the Helly or the Helena and Mark interaction, he just knows something's off. He doesn't know why.
Yeah.
And you're right. He doesn't smile in the very earnest or very kind of like silly, sarcastic way that he can do. He feels something's off. And like I didn't really get a read on that interaction when I first watched it. I was just like, oh, well, it's uncomfortable because it's been some time since they did it and they're in the middle of something and it's hard for them to both dive back in. But yeah, there are so many layers there that, of course, make it sort of like just like he can sense something's a little bit wrong.
Yeah,
And
and
I
the
guess-
fact that it happens in this awkward little like corner,
Right,
this
right.
like
yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, I guess too, like her power in that relationship has been displaced by his realization that the wellness officer has been disappeared.
Yes.
And maybe she knows that that's like Helena knows that that's his ex-wife or an avatar of his ex-wife. We're yet to find out, right?
Yeah.
So then she knows that if she displaces that emotional attachment to him, then she loses power or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. It's so dense. It's so dense.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. But then, speaking of that awkward little corner, they go through the little flap door, the little doggy door,
Yeah.
and they're on their hands and knees. It's kind of like, it reminded me of in Being John Malkovich when
Yeah.
they're the
Yeah.
half, they're in a
Yes.
half floor, and
Yeah.
they've got to kind of squeeze in through their hands and knees. I loved that, like the way they shot that as well, where it looks like a regular sized corridor, and then you see their relative size to the actual space. I love little trick photography, things like that. So fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome. And yeah, 100% got the bit. Because even, crawling into Malkovich's, into the chasm of his brain, it's very... But it's the opposite. They're revealed to be in this fucking giant park place.
Paddock. Yeah.
Paddock for goats.
With a
We
paddock
see
with a
the
vending
goats
machine in the
again.
corner.
Yeah.
Yay!
And Brienne of Tarth, Gwendolyn Christie.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
overseer. The giant
good.
overseer. Yeah.
Man, okay. So they walk into this, the goat room. There's goats aplenty. There's goat herders
Yes.
it's so funny the way they've all just got dirt on their faces.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
cartoonish. Like
Yeah,
the way they're
yeah.
like, all rumpled. And Gwendolyn Christie's wearing this kind of neckerchief around her head. And,
Yeah, the big,
you know,
gloves.
yeah, but I wondered, okay, this is me just being conspiratorial, but they walk in, I think Adam Scott's character says, what the hell is this? And then we see a black goat, which is symbolism for the devil.
Yeah, totally. I
And I'm
was
like-
thinking Black Phillip from The Witch, right? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm like, is this like meant to be hell? Are they going through like the circles of hell? Are they in purgatory? Like, I don't know. And I keep thinking like, what is this show trying to tell me about anything? Like, not necessarily that I need it to like say something or be a symbol for something else, but I am like, but is it trying to tell, or is this like, you know?
But even like they spend a bit of time in that room and there's no real answers about anything. There's like they kind of get into this pretty combative back and forth with her. Everyone kind of turns on them. They manage to diffuse the situation by being like, look, the wellness officer has gone missing. If you had gone missing, you would want people to look for you.
If one of your goats went missing.
Yeah. And then one of them's like, show us your bellies. And they do that. And they're all like, business as usual.
Yeah, no
and
pouches.
Then, and then the other one, and then the guy is like, well, this proves nothing. So what's that about?
What's that room called as well? It's like mammalian
nurturables.
Nurturables.
Yes.
Which again, you're like, what does that mean? I do love the way corporate speak is just like the framing of it's just like stuff that sounds like it means something but actually doesn't mean anything.
100%.
Yeah. And then people making that their identity. It's like that is exactly what working in a fucking office is.
Yeah.
Seventh Circle of Hell, Severance.
Oh yeah.
It's basically the same.
Helly.
Oh. We've cracked the code.
If that's actually what it is.
Yeah, that'd be so funny.
Yeah.
It's actually just a really long prelude to Zoolander 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I would be into.
Yeah.
What else do we get from this scene? They recognize Miss Casey. She used to come down and visit, and so they're moved to help. They like, what do they say? They've like seen her, but not for a while. That's basically anything else to break apart in that section?
No, it's really just like, oh cool, we see in the goat room, but we end up with just more questions than before.
Yeah.
Again, I just was watching Helly and in that scene. I'm like, she doesn't seem that afraid.
Yeah.
She knows something. She knows something about that room. She knows something about what they're doing in that room.
Yeah. She's in control.
Can we talk about our favorite character of the series, Rickon, and what he's up to?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Almost forgot. Yeah.
The king. The King Rick.
Dog.
Yeah. So, by the way, did we know that Milchek's first name is Seth? Has that come up at any point before this?
No.
I don't think it has, no.
That's so funny.
So he walks into his office and is her name Natalie? The surrogate for the board is like, hello, Seth. And so I'd forgotten that that from the first season, that anytime people talk to the board, it's through they're talking through a speaker that then a person is relaying what the board is saying to them. So he gets gifted a series of prints of like paintings of like the origins that have put him into this center of the universe. Fucking L. Ron Hubbard dude.
I laughed when they revealed that portrait.
And he's genuinely moved, and it's like, oh, this is a cult. Like that genuinely moves him. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it does, or it doesn't
I don't think it moves him at all.
Oh, really?
I think what it is like the way she says it's been recanonized as to reflect the diversity of the workforce, as in we've made everyone black. We made you black. And he looks like you because that's how important you are. And there's that wonderful moment where he's silent afterwards and they just look at each other, and like Natalie is obviously like a mixed race woman. He's a black man, and there's an acknowledgement that they can't say it out loud, but the subtext of that being like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck?
She goes, the board wanted me to tell you that I also got this same gift.
Yes.
And I was
quite moved,
yeah. But no, you completely, like, they're literally, it's like they're being held hostage. She has an imaginary gun to her head. She looks so fucking, like, strained and scared. Very Get Out, very just, like... Yeah, her smile, like, she's incredible, this actor. The smile that is pure grimace of fear, fantastic. And yeah, I thought Seth was very disturbed by it. I felt like this is the start of him becoming very disenfranchised with women.
And that maybe leaves the door open for Clobell to come back. Because if he's not entirely happy maybe
Yes.
he will reach out to her, you know. We also forgot to mention, like, Chloe Bell, when she's trying to kind of get back into the building, she says, my work with Cold Harbor was almost finished.
Yeah.
We don't know what that means.
Yes. Yes. And so, Natalie also visits Rickon.
Yep.
Is it Mark that comes in on them, or is it Devon?
It's
Either
Devon.
way, yeah. So she's there. She is talking to him about the way that they can, again, recanonize, censor, you might say, the what is it? The UR?
The UUR, which is, again, such a wonderfully bad name.
Yeah. And he's loving it. He's loving the attention. He's feeling very puffed up. And obviously she's appealing to that ego within him. But another great scene. He is hitting 100. He is so funny in every scene that he's in.
So perfectly smug.
Yep.
But also deeply insecure at the same time. It's so good.
Yeah.
Every extract of the book you hear, it's like so pompous and stupid.
Yeah.
But it really reminded me of that whole thing of like, we're gonna, like, some words are activating to the innies, so we've got to just change a few things.
Right.
It really reminds me of, like, do you know the origin story of cornflakes?
Oh,
No.
yeah.
That
He's a psycho, Dr. Kellogg.
yeah, it's like it kind of comes from like race theory and eugenics.
Yeah.
Right.
Where basically Kellogg's was like, oh, these slaves that we've gotten like on the like plantation, we believe their tempers are too riled up from the hot breakfasts that they eat.
Right.
Because there's a whole thing of like these black men are too intimidating to us white plantation owners, and also they pose a threat to our white women. So what we'll do is we'll give them a cold breakfast, and cornflakes with milk is a cold breakfast that will keep the slaves' tempers down.
Yeah.
And it just really reminded me of that. It's like, oh, like this is really like engineering of the spirit.
Yes.
Like it's fucked. It's so dark and amazing. Obviously loving it. That scene incredible. Devon suitably cynical on everything.
Yep. But I think at the start of the season there was a tweet that I saw that was like, the biggest mystery of the show is why is Devon with Rickon? Like,
Yes.
how are they together?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Nothing
Because she has
about
a
him is
kid with
appealing.
him. Like,
So then she goes, is this the same scene? She goes downstairs and
Mark is working on his little invention. Yes.
Yeah, which we don't know what it is, but they're cutting bits of fabric up and seeing if they can see through it. And they're having a bit of a chat about Mark's kindergarten teacher and, you know, just close relationship. And then when do we see the next bit of that? I guess, like, well, we've kind of covered most other stuff, right? So then we see... Oh, because the episode starts with him, he's, like, timing how long it takes him to walk from the car to the front door, and so clearly, there's some kind of plan going on here.
Yeah, I think.
And then
the only other thing that's not related to this is the conclusion of the Cobell stuff. So she rocks up at Lumen. Helena is there. She basically is like, I demand that you put me back in charge of the severed floor. Milkshake he's not up to it. He doesn't have what it takes. I'm so close, like you said, Jen. I'm so close to finishing Cold Harbor. We've got Mark there. I'm the one who has the expertise to do this. And Helena is basically like, look, watch your tone, but give me a sec. I'll see if I can get the board on the line. And she has her fucking lurch bodyguard with her. And it is all so menacing. And she's like, yeah, come on in. We'll have a nice little chat inside this prison. Come on in. And
you want to be head of the prison?
Yeah.
Come inside the prison.
Yeah. And I think, Cobell wisely senses something is off and drives away. So the rest of the episode is fucking crazy. I can't believe they did this so soon in the season, but so initially the idea is that Mark is going to burn into his retinas who is alive, so that his innie will see it and be able to fill in that gap of that hanging thread from the end of last season.
Yeah, and he's in his car at night, sort of practicing it, I guess. Where is he? Like, where is this?
I think he was just in a random car park. I don't think it was anywhere
Was it
meaningful.
where Petey was living?
Maybe, because then
the burnt out kind of farm. I can't.
Yeah, I
or
forget this.
greenhouse or whatever it was.
Yeah, because I forget this lady's name, but I was kind of like, how did she know he was there? How did she find him there? Like, in any case, yeah, he's doing this, and she interrupts it and is basically like, you know, what's the plan here? You burn it into your retinas, and then how's he gonna send a message back? And he's like, I don't know, that's his problem.
Yeah, but yes, Dr. Ragabi wisely points out the stupidity of this plan, but she is like, come and have a chat. I might have a real solution for you.
Yeah,
I will say as well, she's like, open the door, and he's like, no. And it's like kind of a fun, playful moment.
Yeah.
And I was watching, and I was like, the last time he saw this woman, she beat someone to death.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't want to open the door.
yeah.
No. All right. Like, just so really playful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they go to his basement, and it's his basement, right? Yeah.
I thought it was
no
her,
idea. I
lab.
assume it's her lab. Or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I thought there was anyway, she's, what does she call it? Reintegration?
Yes.
Is that it? Yeah.
I think does she get him there by saying like, or is it at the time in the lab she's like, I've seen your wife alive, like I've seen
She
her
says
recently.
the last time I saw her, she was alive.
Yeah,
Which,
yes.
again, like, kind of puts it in a weird thing. It also started making me question, like, okay, so what's the doctor's motives? Like, is she trying to...
Yeah.
Is she part of Lumen? Is she trying to take down Lumen? And is, this, like, kind of her... She just sees this as an opportunity. Is she actually trying to help find Gemma? I kind of, like, I'm like, okay, so what's her role in this? And then the reintegration scene was so interesting. Like, we mentioned Blade Runner earlier in the episode. Like, it felt very that, like, you see a turtle lying on its back in the desert. What do you do?
100%.
Yeah, I loved this. This was the little flashes of how they show that it's kind of working, and him sort of all of a sudden, like, not being able to remember details about his life and getting a bit freaked out by that. And she's like, no, this means it's working.
Very like... when you get, anesthetized for surgery and they're like, count backwards from 10 and you get to like 5 and you're like that sort of feeling. But I loved how vague it was as well. Like, personally, I don't need to know how this fucking works.
No.
Like cool little sort of contour, map of pixels sort of moving around.
The wavelengths almost
the waves.
sinking.
Yeah.
That's all we need. Just suggest at it. And then, he gets reintegrated as far as we can tell. Something happens. Something serious happens.
And it kind of mirrors the new credits as well.
Right, yes.
Because he's in the red onesie
red.
or whatever from the credits, and then you also see him in his suit in the severed form.
Yeah, and so we don't know exactly how this is going to function, what this will mean for him going into the office now, but hell of an ending.
Yeah.
Man, I just love, again, like, just how you can't tell where anything is in time. You can't tell even where this is in America, really. If there's no central hub to anything. Like, it's just, you cannot tell, like, if this is a big town, a small town, a suburb. Like, you can't tell whether this is a place he's been before, whether it's outside. It's like...
Yeah.
I love that but it gives you enough to not be utterly frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's not like at the forefront. Like, it's all background stuff where, like, I think, it wasn't until the opening scene where he's walking through the car park that I noticed, like, every single car is from the 90s at the absolute latest. There is nothing new there. And then, so I like bring that up to Bridget, my girlfriend, and she's like, but maybe, that could be something. But then they have, like, like security gates, and they have like all of these other bits of technology that are clearly far more advanced than the late 90s.
Or like smartphones or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this just like, is everyone that works at Severance in a bad financial position, and so they have used cars. Is that what it's saying? Like, but maybe it does mean something deeper. It's I love that there's all these details.
I love like set design clues like that. Like I heard this interview with the set designer of Mad Men, and she's like, the first instinct for a show that's set in the late 50s, early 60s or whatever is to just make everything like 60s, like mid-century modern. But the thing is, like, these people don't buy new furniture every year. So what it actually is you buy stuff around like the decade leading up to it.
Yeah.
Because that's like a more like realistic way of like how people actually like decorate their spaces. And then, like, that's such an interesting thing, right? It's like we never see modern cars in this. No one's got a fucking Tesla or anything.
Right. Yeah.
If they have like a fancy car, it's like Irv's like convertible, but it's still kind of like vintage. I guess Wes Milchick's got his like kind of smick looking motorcycle, but
that was
not.
the one thing I was like, but that could just be an expensive old,
90s
Yamaha or something. Who knows? Yeah. God, this is a good show.
I'm pumped for next week.
Good. Thanks for asking me to do this, by the way. I can't believe I lived so long without watching it.
Yeah. Well, it is lucky that you like it, Jen.
Yeah, fuck, it'd be brutal if I was like, I don't know, man.
Oh, God.
Some shit happened.
Bunch of fucking bullshit.
It does really remind me of like watching Breaking Bad towards the end and just really scouring and scanning. And Mad Men, scanning like frames for like, okay, he's reading this book, which is about this and da-da-da. I love like all that. It's fun to have this again.
Yeah, totally. And Tommy and I don't know about you, Jen, we love The Leftovers, which is very similar. It has this very high concept, but then like the back of my head, I'm like, I was a big fan of Lost, and that was like, I was so intrigued. There were so many clues. There was great aesthetics. There were interesting characters, and it shit the bed. And I just don't. Clearly the writing has been fantastic to this point, so like I have faith, but I've been hurt before.
They took their time too. I think that was kind of maybe what contributed to the downfall of Lost, was that it was, that last era where an event sort of like high concept show would be on a network. So they had to come back at the same time every year. You don't get the luxury of being like, if it takes 2.5 years to actually get the season really cooking, then just take the time. It doesn't really matter.
Have we also talked about the irony of Apple making this show?
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy. And then also just some of Apple's other programming being... Have I talked to you, Tommy, about this, about Morning Wars?
No.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, it's an insane show that Apple makes. An insane person show.
Okay.
That's like one of the episodes is set inside the Capitol during January 26th, and Reese Witherspoon plays a journalist, and she's getting assaulted by one of the people invading the Capitol.
Incredible.
And then she's filming, and she films her brother because he's one of the terrorists.
Oh, wow.
And then she has to decide whether she keeps the footage.
Wow.
And then she deletes the footage, and then the FBI try and...
Yeah, I gotta watch this show. This sounds awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
great.
it's so funny to like be really going so deep on Severance and like trying to be like, oh man, like this, like it's so like breadcrumby and subtle and expansive at the same time, and then it's just like you flip to the next program. It's like Reese Witherspoon.
That's like, what it really does. Severance really does stick out as an Apple show in terms of the quality. Like there's some other stuff on there that's like fine, and I know people ride pretty hard for Ted Lasso, but no thanks.
Nah. What If Man Was Nice show?
People are, it's like Scrubs, but set in the world of soccer. Like you've actually just described maybe the most intolerable sounding thing.
It's like Scrubs, but they don't say the F slur for the first 2 seasons.
Slow Horses is Apple though, isn't it?
Slow Horses is good. Yeah.
I mean, Slow Horses and Severance. That's like having The Sopranos and The Wire on your service.
That's true.
Everything
Which did
else
happen.
Could be shit. What are you talking about, Tom? I simply must get this service. But another great episode. Great Who song playing over the credits.
Oh yeah.
Very keen for next week. But I reckon that'll do us for
this
week of video.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much for listening. Hop onto the Patreon if you would like to hear bonus content,
Bunch of others. Stuff.
bunch of other crap. Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.